Welcome. Welcome to the session of anti-Parkinsonian drugs. I'm Dr. Jay Babu, Assistant Professor, Kakatiya Medical College, Warangal. By the end of the session, the MBBS Phase 2 student should be able to know what is Parkinsonism, its pathophysiology, able to classify anti-Parkinsonian drugs, mechanism action of anti-Parkinsonian drugs, pharmacokinetics and pharmacological actions, adverse effects, drug interactions of levodopa. You should be able to know the Alzheimer's disease and its pathophysiology and what are the drugs used in Alzheimer's disease. And the MBBS Phase 2 students should be able to know what are cognition enhancers. Parkinson's disease is first discovered by James Parkinson, also called as paralysis agitans. It is characterized by tremors, rigidity, bradykinesia, that is slowness of movements, and the loss of postural reflexes. So it is a syndrome of varied etiology, and its important features are bradykinesia, muscular rigidity, postural instability, loss of associated movements, and there are tremors. There may be excessive salivation, seborrhea, depression, and sometimes liver damage. So Parkinsonism, under the mnemonic Parkinsonism, we can cover all the important features. There is pill rolling tremors, akathisia, that is inability to sit still, rigidity, kinesia, akinesia, dyskinesia, unstable posture, that is stooped posture, no arm swinging in rhythm with legs, cyalluria, oculogyric crisis, eyes are held fixed for a variable length of time, nervous depression, involuntary tremors, seborrhea, masked facial expression. So the Parkinson's disease, also called as paralysis agitans, in idiopathic or primary Parkinsonism, there is degeneration of the dopamine containing neurons in the substantia nigra, resulting in dopamine deficiency. In idiopathic Parkinsonism, there is a degeneration of dopamine containing neurons in the substantia nigra, resulting in dopamine deficiency. There may be genetic predisposition, raging of the brain due to free radical damages. Clinical symptoms may appear when there is a 80% reduction of dopamine in the striatum. And there is a And Parkinsonism, there is a drug-induced Parkinsonism. The secondary Parkinsonism causes may be due to antipsychotic drugs and drugs like haloperidol, triperidol, chlorpromazine, and other halogenated phenothiazines, reserpine. All these drugs may lead to drug-induced Parkinsonism. And Parkinsonism may occur due to poisoning due to manganese and carbon monoxide, sometimes due to viral encephalitis, syphilis, and Wilson's disease. So normally there is a balance between dopamine and acetylcholine in the striatum. And in the normally there is a balance between inhibitory dopaminergic neurons and excitatory cholinergic neurons. But in the Parkinsonism, there is, that is in idiopathic Parkinsonism, there is degeneration of dopamine containing neurons in the substantia nigra, resulting in dopamine deficiency. Hence, the balance between inhibitory dopaminergic neurons and excitatory cholinergic neurons is disturbed, resulting in relative cholinergic overactivity. So normally there is a balance between dopamine and acetylcholine in the striatum, but in the Parkinsonism, due to deficiency of dopamine, there is a leads to relative increase in acetylcholine activity. So the balance between the dopamine and acetylcholine is restored with the use of anti-Parkinsonian drugs. Synthesis and metabolism. It's a dopamine precursor, is a levodopa. Levodopa is a main drug in the treatment of idiopathic Parkinsonism. Levodopa is converted to dopamine by dopamine decarboxylase, and dopamine is converted to dihydroxyphenylacetic acid by monoamino oxidase B enzyme. Levodopa is also converted to 3-O-methyl-dopa with help of catechol-O-methyl transferase enzyme. So the levodopa is the main drug in the treatment of idiopathic Parkinsonism. Dopamine does not cross blood-brain barrier. Hence, its immediate precursor, levodopa, that is a prodrug, is used. Levodopa is converted to dopamine by decarboxylase enzyme. A large amount of drug is converted to dopamine in the peripheral tissues by peripheral decarboxylase enzyme. Only a small amount, that is 3 to 5% of levodopa enters the brain. Therefore, levodopa is always used in combination with carbidopa, which does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So the peripheral metabolism of levodopa is reduced, thus increasing its bioavailability in the basal ganglia. Levodopa improves all the clinical symptoms, that is rigidity, bradykinesia, and tremor of the Parkinsonism, but it does not stop the progression of the disease. Coming to the classification of the drugs of the anti-Parkinsonian drugs, we have drugs which increases the dopaminergic activity, and we have drugs that suppress the cholinergic activity. Coming to the drugs which are increasing the dopaminergic activity, we have dopamine precursor levodopa, drugs inhibiting the levodopa metabolism, that is catechol-O methyltransferase inhibitors, tolcapone and entacapone. Drugs inhibiting dopamine metabolism, that is monoamino oxidase B inhibitors, siligilin. We have dopamine receptor agonists, bromocriptine, pergolide, pramipexole, ropinirole, and drugs inducing dopamine release and inhibition of neuronal uptake. We have amantadine. Coming to the drugs decreasing the cholinergic activity, we have centrally acting cholinergic antagonists, that is benztropine, benhexol, procyclidine, byperidine. Coming to levodopa, so levodopa should not be given alone. It should always given in the combination with the carbidopa, because levodopa alone undergoes, most of the levodopa is by peripheral decarboxylation, it's converted to dopamine. Only 1 to 3% reaches the brain, and there are several adverse effects due to increase in the peripheral levels of the dopamine. The adverse effects like tachycardia, palpitation, hypotension. When we combine levodopa with carbidopa, the carbidopa does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So levodopa reaches more than 10% to the brain. The peripheral adverse effects are reduced. And also it lowers the levodopa dose requirement by 75%. So always we give levodopa in combination with the carbidopa. The uses: levodopa is used for all types of Parkinsonism except the drug-induced Parkinsonism. Carbidopa is given initially 25 mg, carbidopa plus levodopa 100 mg, 1 tablet TDS 1 hour before meals. Later, the dose of the levodopa can be increased to carbidopa 25 mg plus levodopa 250 mg. So the drug-induced Parkinsonism, the dopamine receptors in the striatum are blocked. There is no deficiency of dopamine. Hence, it is reversible following stoppage of the offending drug. Here, levodopa is useful for all types of Parkinsonism except drug-induced Parkinsonism. Here, we use levodopa 100 mg plus carbidopa 25 mg. In the combination, usually starting dose is 100 mg levodopa plus 25 mg carbidopa. Later, it may increase to levodopa 250 mg plus carbidopa 25 mg. So, levodopa is the main drug, the treatment of idiopathic Parkinsonism. On oral administration, levodopa is rapidly absorbed from the small intestine by active transport system. Amino acids present in the food may interfere with the absorption of levodopa, hence it should be given 30 to 60 minutes before meals. Active transport of levodopa into the brain may be inhibited by competition from dietary amino acids. The main metabolic products of levodopa are homo-vanillic acid and dihydroxyphenyl acetic acid. These metabolites are excreted in the urine. Adverse effects. There are fluctuations in response. That is after 3 to 5 years of therapy with progressing disease, control becomes poor and fluctuations in symptoms occur frequently. The fluctuations in response after 3 to 5 years of therapy, the levodopa with progressing disease, the control with 3 to 5 years of therapy, with progressing disease, control becomes poor and fluctuations in symptoms occur frequently. Wearing off the end of the dose, wearing off effect, that is end of dose, is due to decrease in plasma concentration of levodopa towards the end of the dose interval. Wearing off effect, that is end of dose, is due to decrease in plasma concentration of levodopa towards the end of a dose interval. The patient may show fluctuation in the response, being of loss of beneficial effect of the drug and being on relief of the most of the symptoms, but with disabling dyskinesias called the on-off phenomena. So the patient may show fluctuations being off and being on. Being off, the loss of beneficial effect of the drug, being on, relief of the most of the symptoms. This is on and off phenomena. Sustained release formulations of carbidopa and levodopa produces more stable plasma levodopa levels and helps to reduce fluctuation in response, that is on-off phenomenon. So sustained release of formulations of carbidopa and levodopa produces more stable plasma levodopa levels and helps to reduce fluctuation in response, that is on-off phenomena. End of dose deterioration can also improve by administrating levodopa in smaller and in more frequent doses. So advantages of combination of the carbidopa and the levodopa. Increased bioavailability of dopamine in the basal ganglia. Hence, the dose of the levodopa can be reduced by 75%. Prolongation of plasma of life of levodopa. Reduction in the incidence of GI side effects like nausea and vomiting. Cardiovascular side effects like tachycardia, hypotension, and cardiac arrhythmias are minimized, and there is better patient compliance. Coming to the adverse effects, there is fluctuations in response, wearing effect and on-off phenomena. Wearing of effect is controlled by giving sustained release formulations of carbidopa and levodopa. And on-off phenomena, we can give levodopa in smaller and more frequent doses. Other adverse effects, there may be abnormal movements, dyskinesis, tremors, chorioethitoid movements may occur, and there are mental changes like insomnia, confusion, delusion, euphoria, depression, anxiety, hallucinations, and nightmares. Cardiovascular side effects, postural hypertension, and cardiac arrhythmias when given levodopa alone. Peripheral side effects, anorexia, nausea, and vomiting. And there may be abnormalities in smell or taste. Contraindications of levodopa is in should not give psychosis, narrow angle glaucoma, cardiac arrhythmias, and melanoma. Coming to catechol O methyl transferase inhibitors, that is tolcapone and entacapone. Tolcapone and entacapone are reversible catechol O methyl transferase inhibitors. By inhibiting the peripheral metabolism of levodopa to 3-O methyl dopa, They increase the half-life of levodopa and also enhance its bioavailability in the CNS. The on time is prolonged and the dose of levodopa can be reduced. Tolcapone has both peripheral and central actions with relatively longer duration of action, whereas entacapone inhibits catechol-O methyl transferase only in the periphery. Catechol-O methyl transferase inhibitors are used as a adjunct to levodopa carbidopa for advanced cases of Parkinson's disease. Combined preparation of levodopa plus carbidopa plus entacapone is available. So tolcapone and entacapone. Tolcapone, both central and peripheral effects. Entacapone is a peripheral blocker of the catechol-O methyl transferase. Tolcapone is more potent and long duration of action. So adverse effects, this include dyskinesia, nausea, diarrhea, postural hypertension, hallucinations. Tolcapone may rarely cause fulminant hepatitis, hence it should be avoided in patients with liver disease. Entacapone does not cause hepatotoxicity. Coming to the MAO, B inhibitors, that is monoamino oxidase inhibitors. We have siligilin and rasagiline. They are selectively and irreversibly inhibit monoamino oxidase B enzyme in the brain. They are selectively and irreversibly inhibit the monoamino oxidase B enzyme in the brain. They are administered orally. They do not inhibit monoamino oxidase in the periphery. They retard the metabolism of dopamine in the brain and prevent the formation of toxic metabolites. Thus, they produce neuroprotective effect in idiopathic Parkinson disease and retard the progression of the disease. They produce neuroprotective effect in the idiopathic Parkinson disease and retard the progression of the disease. They enhance as well as prolong the effect of levodopa. They also reduce the on-off and wearing off phenomena. The metabolites of siligilin are amphetamine and methamphetamine, which cause side effects like insomnia, anxiety, nausea, and vomiting. As a monotherapy in the earlier stages, we give siligilin. As a combination in the later stages. Dopamine agonists, they directly stimulate the dopamine receptors. Advantages, they do not require their metabolic conversion to dopamine, do not depend on functional integrity of the nigrostriatal dopamine neurons, longer duration of action than levodopa, lesser dyskinesias and on-off phenomena, more selective than levodopa on dopamine receptors, less likely to generate damaging free radicals. Ergot derivatives, we have bromocriptine, pergolide, lyseride, cabergoline. Bromocriptine is a strong D2 agonist and a partial agonist at D1. Pergolide is agonist at D2 and D1 receptors. Ropinirole is a D2 agonist. So these are the ergot derivatives having similar actions. Adverse effects: anorexia, nausea and vomiting, vertigo, postural hypertension, and the vasospasm, pleural fibrosis, peripheral edema. Non-ergotic derivatives, we have pramipexole and ropinirole. So we have ergot derivatives, bromocriptine, pergolide. Bromocriptine acting at the D2 and partially, it is strong D2 agonist and partial agonist at D1. Pergolide agonist at D2 and D1. Non-ergot derivatives, we have pramipexole, most selective for D3. Ropinirole acting at D2 agonist. So adverse effects may be peripheral vasospasm, uncontrolled tendency to fall asleep. We have amantadine, which is an antiviral drug. And is used for the treatment and prophylaxis of influenza A. And this drug is also used in Parkinsonism. It facilitates the release of dopamine from dopaminergic neurons in the brain. It is less effective than levodopa and hence used for initial treatment of mild Parkinsonism. Its therapeutic activity can be increased by combining with levodopa. It's given by oral route and it's well tolerated. Used alone in the early stages, the combination for more beneficial effects. It is used in the initial treatment of mild Parkinson's. Adverse effects: hallucinations, insomnia, nausea, dizziness, ankle edema, reticularis and confusion. Libido, reticularis, where we see discolored patches on the skin. Coming to the central acting anticholinergic or antimuscarinic drugs. We have benzohexol, benztropine, piperidine. Centrally acting anticholinergics like benzohexol, that is a trihexyphenidyl, and benztropine are the treatment of choice in the drug-induced Parkinsonism and are also effective in the idiopathic Parkinsonism. They have mainly central action with minimal peripheral action. They act by reducing the increased cholinergic activity in the striatum. They are less effective than levodopa but are cheap and better tolerated. They are mainly effective in relieving tremor and rigidity in the Parkinsonism with little effect on hypokinesia. So these are acting both for the central acting anticholinergic like benzoxazole, benzpyridine, benztropine. These are used for drug-induced Parkinsonism as well as the idiopathic Parkinsonism. They act by reducing the increased cholinergic activity in the striatum. They are effective in relieving tremor and rigidity of Parkinsonism. So levodopa is not effective in drug-induced Parkinsonism because dopamine receptors are blocked. There is no deficiency of dopamine. While levodopa is not effective in drug-induced Parkinsonism, because in drug-induced Parkinsonism, dopamine receptors are blocked, but there is no deficiency of dopamine. So centrally acting antimuscarinic drugs are used in the early stages or as adjuvants, and they are mainly used when neuroleptic induced Parkinsonism. Adverse effects of centrally acting anticholinergics: dry mouth, blurred vision, urinary retention, constipation, confusion, delirium, and hallucination. And surgical therapy can be tried by grafting fetal brain tissue or stem cell culturing techniques. The future aspects can be tried with glutamate dopamine balance. Coming to the Alzheimer's disease, the factors that increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease include the age, the risk of developing the Alzheimer's disease increases with age. According to the Alzheimer's Association, 10% of all people over the age of 65 years have Alzheimer's disease. 50% of people will have Alzheimer's disease over the age of 85 years. Gender, the women are more affected than men. A clear inherited pattern of Alzheimer's disease exists for less than 10% of all cases. Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome often develop Alzheimer's disease in their 30s and 40s. Although the exact reason is not known, Alzheimer's disease is a brain disorder in which nerve cells in the brain die, making it difficult to brain signals to be transmitted properly. A person with Alzheimer's disease has problems with memory, judgment, and thinking, which makes it hard for the person to work or to take part in day-to-day life. Most patients' symptoms progress slowly over a number of years. Symptoms may not be noticed early on. Sometimes it is only when family members look back that they realize when the changes started to occur. Impaired memory and thinking. The person has difficulty remembering things or learning new information. In later stages of the disease, long-term memory loss occurs, which means that the person can't remember personal information such as his or her place of birth or occupation or names of close family members. Disorientation and confusion. People with Alzheimer's disease may get lost when out on their own and may not be able to remember where they are and how they got there. They may not recognize previously familiar places and situations. They also may not recognize familiar faces or know what time of the day it is or even what year it is. Misplacing things, the person forgets where he or she put things used every day, such as glasses, hearing aid, keys. They may also put things in strange places, such as leaving their glasses in the refrigerator. Abstract thinking may find certain tasks, such as balancing a checkbook, more difficult than usual. For example, they might forget what the numbers mean and what needs to be done with them. Trouble performing the familiar tasks. The person begins to have difficulty performing daily tasks, such as eating, dressing, and grooming. Planning for normal day-to-day tasks is also impaired. Changes in personality and behavior. The person becomes unusually angry, irritable, restless, or quiet. At times, the people with Alzheimer's disease can become confused, paranoid, and fearful. Poor or decreased judgment. People with Alzheimer's disease may leave the house on a cold day without a coat or shoes, or could go to the store wearing their pajamas. Inability to follow directions. The person has difficulty understanding simple commands or directions. The person may get lost easily and begin to wander. Problems with language and communication. The person can't recall words, name objects, even ones that are very familiar to them, like a pen, the meaning of common words, impaired visual and spatial skills. The person loses spatial abilities, the ability to judge shape, size, the relations of objects in space, and can't arrange items in a certain order of, and also don't recognize shapes. Loss of motivation and initiative. The person may become very passive and require prompting to become involved and interact with others. Loss of normal sleep patterns. The person may sleep during the day and may be wide awake at night. Exercise, physical activity should be continued for as long as possible. This will help prevent muscle weakness and health complications associated with inactivity. While exercising does not stop Alzheimer's disease from progressing, patients do receive the emotional satisfaction of feeling they have accomplished something. Alzheimer's disease is due to deposits of protein fragments called beta amyloid fill up the spaces between brain cells. Tangles of protein called tau inside the cells thought to be the causal. Two hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease are accumulation in the brain of beta amyloid and reduction of the concentration of acetylcholine. A gene implicated in heart disease also appears to be involved in most of the Alzheimer's cases, that is ApoE. The same forces that trigger this beta amyloid deposits might harm the arteries and cause heart attacks. The culprits may be the oxygen damage, the cellular equivalent of rust, and harmful effects of chronic inflammation. Preventive measures, estrogen and ginkgo biloba, possibly due to anti-inflammatory or circulatory properties. Estrogen should be given and ginkgo biloba should be taken. Anti-inflammatory drugs can be given to limit the production of amyloid. Vitamin E supplements should be given. Statin drugs for high cholesterol reduces the Alzheimer's risk. Folate lowers the amino acid homocysteine that is supposed to increase the Alzheimer's and heart disease risk. Ampalex boosts the LTP, seems to help memory loss. Mental exercise should be done to active the brain. To do better, you have to use the brain or we may lose it. Responding to the persons with Alzheimer's disease, it's important to remember that the person is not acting this way on purpose. The change in behavior could be caused by physical discomfort, overstimulation, unfamiliar surroundings, complicated tasks, frustrating interactions. Interacting with persons with Alzheimer's disease, communicating with the person affected by Alzheimer's disease requires patience and understanding. Be supportive and show interest. Offer comfort and reassurance. Encourage them to communicate non-verbally. Focus on feelings, not facts. Give them the time and do not interrupt. Talk slowly and clearly. Turn questions into answers. Turn negatives into positives. Avoid quizzing about their past. Give visual clue such as pointing and touching. Write things down for them. Be aware of the tone of your voice. A lower pitch is more calming. Pay special attention to your body language. So the dementia is a global term. There are other diseases which may affect the memory. Dementia, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's chorea, schizophrenia also are affecting the memory. So the treatment be done with the cholinesterase inhibitors like donepezil, which can be given 5 to 10 mg, rivastigmine 2 to 6 mg BID, or galantamine 4 to 12 mg BID. You can also try NMDA receptor antagonist, memantine, and the treatment of neuropsychiatric symptoms by antipsychotics and antidepressants. Drug therapy should be combined with non-pharmacological treatment such as social interaction and person-centered care training. Coming to the cognition enhancers, also known as nootropics. This cognition enhancers improves the memory, increases the mental alertness and concentration, boost the energy levels and wakefulness. Cognition enhancers act by increasing the blood flow to the brain, which allows the brain to use more oxygen, raises adrenaline levels in the body, thus increases wakefulness, increases certain neurotransmitters like dopamine. The types of cognition enhancers may be Eugorex, promotes wakefulness and alertness. We have a drug like modafinil, and we have ADHD medications, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's a pediatric condition characterized by inattentiveness and impulsiveness with or without hyperactivity, impaired learning, and emotional liability. These children are easily distracted and accident prone. So we have to give psychomotor stimulants like D-amphetamine, methylphenidate, so methylphenidate has a property similar to that of amphetamine, and it is a preferred drug. And the nootropic supplements improves the cognitive performance. Vitamin B complex, fish oil, ginkgo biloba, caffeine, omega-3 fatty acids, blueberries, salmon fish, eggs, and dark chocolate. These are some of the natural cognition enhancers. So we have natural enhancers like blueberries, caffeine, fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids, eggs, dark chocolate. Methyl, we have other condition like the stimulants, the central nervous system, and these are the cognition enhancers, which are improving the memory, mental alertness, and concentration, boost energy levels, and wakefulness. So these are the patients. This is with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and cognition enhancers. By this end of the session, the MBBS phase 2 medical student should be able to know about Parkinson's disease, classification, mechanism of action of the drugs, pharmacological actions, adverse events, and also the drug interactions, the Alzheimer's disease, different drugs used in Alzheimer's disease, and what are cognition enhancers. Regarding the drug interactions of levodopa should not be given with monoamino oxidase inhibitors, as inhibition of monoamine oxidase retards the metabolism of levodopa. The plasma concentration of levodopa increases, may precipitate hypertensive crisis and hyperpyrexia. Levodopa should not be given with pyridoxine, because pyridoxine promotes the peripheral conversion of levodopa to dopamine and reduces the therapeutic effect of levodopa. Levodopa and antihypertensive drugs should not be given, because there is a worsening of the postural hypertension. So we have completed with anti-Parkinsonian drugs, those drugs which are influencing the brain dopaminergic system, and those drugs influencing the brain cholinergic system. And Alzheimer's disease and the importance of the patient-doctor relation and the family members' relation with the Alzheimer's patients, and the different cognition enhancers which promote wakefulness, alertness, and improves the cognitive performance. Thank you for your active listening.